So we'd like to welcome everyone to this, our fourth discussion, Frank,
Yes.
about the Cardington, the prospect of building a school on the Cardington field. We have with us tonight, taking the lead in this presentation, Frank Salerno, who's our Director of Elementary Schools. We have a few guests with us to help us, some expert guests to talk about the possibility of building a school on that field. So Frank, take it away.
Thank you, Aranda, and thank you everyone for joining us. I do want to first acknowledge not only Aranda for, as always, doing a great job in helping us set up these virtual meetings and helping to facilitate them. She is our Director of Communications, but our Superintendent, Dr. McGarry, is here with us as well. He has attended every single one of the sessions, so we appreciate him being here. We have a few members of our school board here. We have Don Fields, who is here with us. We have Dr. Meredith Hegg, who is with us, Mr. Neil Desnoyers, Ms. Rachel Mitchell, and we have a few members of the school district administration that will be joining us as well as they are able to hop on. We also have with us, as Ms. Buford mentioned, we have Mr. Ryan Orr, who is with us as a part of the school district's architectural team, and Mr. Orr is with us from KCBA Architects. In addition to the administrative members of Upper Darby School District, we do have members of the community. Welcome everyone, thank you for joining us. And we also have some teachers here that are going to be hopping on the call as well. In particular, I see that one of our Senko teachers, Mr. Labonde, actually did just join us as well. So we appreciate everyone's attendance. We know it's an extremely busy time of year, so we're going to keep this to an hour max. We're going to have a hard stop at 7:30. We will have an opportunity for a few questions, comments, suggestions at the end of the presentation. As Aranda did say, though, this is our fourth time meeting with the community about the Cardington Elementary School project. We are going to give an overview of all of these meetings at the end and give you the next date that we are going to have a community forum. And that time it will be in person. We are looking to host an in-person community forum on the field itself in June. That date, again, we're going to have this in a slide later in the presentation, but you can go ahead and mark it down in your calendars now. It's going to be June 7th at 4 p.m. right there on the Cardington field. So it was our hope to be able to have as many virtual opportunities as possible. Thank goodness that things seem to be opening up a bit more, and the data in terms of COVID is a bit more favorable. We feel a bit more comfortable having an in-person gathering, albeit outdoors. So we are going to do so on June 7th at 4 o'clock at the Cardington field. We have had a lot of great input, a lot of very healthy conversations about this project up to this point. So as a result of that, the presentation itself is going to be a bit longer than it has been for our prior three meetings. And that is intentional. That's by design, because we have taken a lot of the comments, suggestions, questions that have been coming our way, not only during the meetings, but also phone calls that we have been receiving, emails that we have been receiving from community members. So we wanted to incorporate a lot of these questions, comments, suggestions into our presentation. And as a result, our presentation is a bit more robust than it has been the last few opportunities that we have had to meet. That being said, we are going to have a few opportunities for our members of the community or our school district employees, board of school directors, anyone for that matter, to ask questions, to make comments or suggestions. So obviously feel free to use the Zoom chat feature. So if you're familiar with Zoom and you're comfortable putting a comment or question or suggestion to your name via Zoom on the chat feature, please feel free to do that. But I also wanted to create an opportunity. Some people perhaps are a bit uncomfortable putting a comment or a question or a suggestion attached to their name. So that being said, I wanted to create an opportunity for anyone who was on the call to be able to do so. So if you would like to do that, you can go to www.slido.com. It's on the slide that I have up right now, slido.com. Very easy. As soon as you get to that website, you can put in this code here, 231-728. And you'll see the Cardington Community Meeting number 4. And that will give you the ability to type in a question. I will get that question directly, and you can decide whether or not you would like to attach your name to that question, comment, or suggestion, or just leave it anonymous. We did receive some feedback. I specifically received some feedback specific to just creating an opportunity and a space for people who perhaps would be otherwise unwilling to come off of on camera, to come off of mute, to put something in the Zoom field, to create maybe an anonymous opportunity for someone to ask a question, make a suggestion. So this is really an opportunity for us to be able to do that. And like I said before, at the very end of our presentation, if time allows, and hopefully we will have at least 5 to 10 minutes for any comments, questions, suggestions at the end of the meeting. But we do have a lot of updated slides, like I said. So we are going to take a little bit more time with that information. Mr. Orr from KCBA will be reviewing some slides, which will be a refresher to those of you who have been on some of our meetings the first 3 times that we have met, but some additional slides with some updated features that we would like to show, some updated options, and again, addressing some of the concerns and suggestions that have come up to this point. So I wanted to just make it a point. I did a little bit more digging. I was able to find this image of Cardington Elementary School on the same site on the Cardington field that we were proposing the new Cardington Elementary School to go. And I was able to find this picture. Ironically, this picture is proudly displayed in our golf building. As soon as you walk into the golf building, there's a few plaques, the Cardington plaque, the bronze of Cardington before it was demolished. That was obviously saved and proudly displayed at our golf building. And this image, a picture of Cardington Elementary School, is also there. I believe this image is from 1981, which was the last year that the school was actually used for a school. The building was used for a school. And then it was demolished in 1982. And here we are close to 40 years later, looking at potentially building a school on this same site where there was once a school. Interestingly, the school also had some additions it was added onto throughout the course of its history. I believe it was built in the early to mid 1920s. And there were some additions put onto the school as the population of the area began to increase. And the school was eventually decided to no longer be in use because the school continued and the area continued to grow in population to the point where Upper Darby School District could not accommodate all of the students that it needed to in this space. And that was really the springboard for the construction of Stonehurst Hills Elementary School and Bywood Elementary School. And like I said, here we are 40 years later with 2 schools in Charles Kelly Elementary School and Walter Senko Elementary School, both properties, as you all know, that we do not own, who are both overcrowded. And we are looking once again to put a school on this site to alleviate the need for those leased buildings, to alleviate the pressure from schools like Bywood, Stonehurst, Highland Park, bring our students back into the community, not have a need for them to be on a bus upwards of an hour total to school each day, and to really make this a point of pride for Upper Darby School District and the township as it once was, as you can see in this image. You've seen this map a few times. I think it's a really important piece of information. However, you can see the proposed site of Cardington Elementary School right here where the field currently is. And you can see just our draft catchment area adjustment with Aronimink Elementary School renovation and expansion in play, Cardington Elementary School here in play as an option for the district, and how we are going to shift some of our catchment areas to, again, alleviate some of the overcrowding over here on the eastern side of the district, using all of this wonderful new free space here at Aronimink Elementary School, and bringing our students way over here in Glen Olden at Senko back into a neighborhood school with adequate educational space that we can use, and alleviating the need for the kindergarten center here is our hope. And our hope is to be able to have K-5 programming at all of our schools, not need to use modular classrooms that have been in place for way too many years now, that are in really not so great condition, and to really, again, create an amazing educational space for our students throughout the entire district, to reduce class size averages, and give our teachers the professional space they need and deserve, and most importantly, our students and our families that same situation as well. Let's go to the next slide here. Here's the property. You can see an aerial view. Everyone's familiar with this. And I'm going to let Ryan Orr from KCBA walk you through just some of the considerations, some of the things that we have been talking about the last 3 times. And then Ryan's really excited to show you some of the new images that we have, and some of the talking points that have come out of the first 3 meetings, and make sure that we acknowledge those, and know that we have a plan for those comments and some of the concerns that have been addressed so far up to this point. Ryan?
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, and certainly this is an exciting time for the district and for the community. As Frank explained, this field is right in your community. This school will be for your neighborhood children. They won't have to be bused outside of the district anymore. They will go to school in their neighborhood. This will be a place of congregation and community for them. So you go to the next slide, Frank. So obviously Cardington Field right there in the center. Across the way, the burial grounds. To the west, we have the business area of 69th Street, and all of this is surrounded by the neighborhood community. So these opportunities that are presented on Cardington Field are for the neighborhood community. So once again, another view of Cardington Field here. So we have Walnut Street to the south, Sampson Street to the north, and these are those large collector streets which take you over to 69th Street. So our initial investigation is looking at these 2 as the possible traffic routes for the site in order to get vehicles on and off of the site in a safe manner, and try to disturb the neighborhood in the least amount of disturbance. Go ahead, Frank, to the next one. So again, that link over to 69th Street. So we're 3.8 acres on Cardington Field, which certainly is enough space to hold not only a school, adequate parking, but also adequate open space. And as Frank alluded to a little bit further in the presentation, we have some images that are visioning images of how that space might be used with the backdrop of a very conceptual building. Of how much space is still on this site, how much open space is still available to the community for various options once there is a school situated on this site. So looking at some of those options, in the reverse image, it's great that Frank presented that image earlier where the school is actually off of Walnut Street. This first option would be the school would be off of Sampson Street. But as we've discussed before, parking is placed in the middle of the site. That would bring more traffic onto Heather and Chatham. So this option might not be the best option. We also put the school building back where most of the residential is, crowding that area of the site. So there you go, from Sampson and Walnut. Another option is similar to the previously existing building. From that 80s photo, school building along Walnut Street. But what this again does is put the parking towards the middle or the back of the site. So we would need to come down those other minor streets in order to get to parking. Option 3, let's put the building in the middle. Parking could come off of Sampson. We'd put the open space off of Walnut. Pros and cons to that approach as well. And the final option, again, building in the middle of the site, parking off of Walnut possibly. There is a light down there, so that might align well with bringing traffic onto the site, keeping the open space towards the neighborhood as much as possible, and minimizing the impact of that school building mass on the site. So as we move, these again just are side-by-side comparisons of those 4 options that we just walked through. And now some of the open space options. So these are all presented in that option 4, where the open space is back to the north of the site by Sampson Street. And there's unlimited possibilities here. So it could be one large community playground where we're able to get brand new equipment. We're able to get spaces for people to walk. We're able to provide hard areas for play. So once it rains, this area drains quickly. Students are able to play, right after a rainstorm happens. So that's the goal of this option. If we look at another option, maybe there's a smaller playground, but there's also a larger. There's also a secondary piece, which could be a reading grove, or it could be an area for people to congregate and watch their children play from across the way there. A third option that we've developed based on community input here and some of the conversations that Frank has received shows there is still a desire for some open space. So this idea would be there's still a large playground. There might be an opportunity to rebuild the basketball court that exists on Cardington Field now. Once again, that opportunity for a reading grove, sitting area, but also an opportunity for a smaller size field, similar to like an under 8 size soccer field, to also be able to be built on that site in that open space area that we're talking about now. So here are some of those visioning images. So once again, this is not a design. There are many options to what these items could be. There's certainly, there isn't a designed building on the site, but what we're looking at now is the existing Cardington Field site. So right now we're at the corner of Sansom and Chatham, looking to the southwest. So that's what we're looking at right now. And if we flip to the next image, this is the exact same spot that we were standing, looking across the field towards the baseball field and on the right-hand side there. So you can see this is still a large open space, plenty of space for playground equipment. Actually, on the other side of those trees is that large play field. So that space in the middle, parents could look both to the large open space if they have a child over there, or look towards the playground with a child on that side of the site as well. And again, building in the background, we're looking at a 3-story classroom building for the elementary school. So again, just an idea of size and scale of what that building is. And
Brian, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
About this. So I see multiple playground apparatus here, or it's just there's different playground options.
Correct.
And is this back here closer to the visioning building image that you have? Is this the basketball court back here? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, that's the current placeholder. If we can slide that within this open space, we can slide that wherever if it's more desirable to have the basketball court towards the street, things like that. So all these conversations still need to happen, but this visioning image is trying to show you just how much space is still on this site. So looking again at another existing site image, this is from Sampson and Heather, looking to the southeast. So you can see we're on that baseball diamond, looking across the field. And if you click to the next image, once again, another visioning image. So same building backdrop, but here is that U8 size, under 8 size soccer field, open field where children can play. And as Frank mentioned, yeah, the basketball court is still in the background, as well as that reading grove sitting area as well. So all 4 of those areas make up this large open space that's still part of the Cardington Field. So some of the other questions that came up specifically in the last meeting were ideas of studies and testing. So the image there is actually a geotechnical rig. So it's a big drill rig, but part of the first steps before we even start to design exactly what goes where and how big things are is geotechnical testing. So we're going to test the soil. We're going to test the quality of the soil. We're going to test can the soil here bear a building. Based on that, we're going to work on the design based on those findings. The other portion of that, there was a comment brought up about the existing building being buried into the ground. So we're going to find out when we drill these holes exactly what's there, are the foundations still there? Was it caved into the hole there? And based on that, we're going to have to remove, or we're going to be able to leave in place. So all of that's going to be determined once we conduct the geotechnical testing. Additionally, in concert with that is environmental testing. So we're going to test the site materials. We're going to test the soil. And once again, as explained last time, we need to make sure that this site is environmentally clean. So based on the findings of that testing, we will also be conducting any remediation that is required. And we're going to do that based on state and federal standards that we're required to uphold. Part of that is a clean fill certification. So that is, if any soil is to come off of the site, we actually need that soil to be tested and okayed for it to even leave the site. So it's just one more check mark that you know that we're going to have to clean up this site if there are any issues. And then lastly, utility location. If there are utilities running through the field, we're going to make sure that we locate them so that while construction is going on, we make sure that there are no issues with interfering with those existing utilities. So one more safeguard during construction to make sure that everyone is staying safe during construction. Once again, going to safety and security. It is our #1 priority during any construction project, is safety and security. And in this case, that is, we're able to fence all of the ongoing construction. So there you see on the left-hand side, there'll be construction fencing. All the construction equipment will be on one side of the fence. Everyone else, the public, will be on the other side of the fence, and there won't be any intermixing. Also, part of that is there will be on-site personnel there, making sure that the site does remain safe. And there is the possibility of surveillance. We'll typically have a recording camera, several recording cameras, keeping record of the site. And lastly, all of that construction activity will occur within the site fencing. Same thing with contractor parking. Now, this is a tight site, so in concert with the district, we are looking at the possibility of an off-site staging area. So maybe a few blocks away, there might be a space for contractor parking. So they're able to bring their tools to the site, but then they have to park somewhere else, not in the neighborhood. We're looking at doing all this in order to minimize the impact on the neighborhood during construction. So the another goal of the project that we're looking at and we're hoping to achieve is the idea of trying to finish some of the park areas sooner than the rest of the project. So we are anticipating that the entire site will need to be utilized for construction. And these again are just our visioning dates. So if we were to say go now, we would be aiming for these dates, but spring of 2023 and spring of 2024, from that time period, the entire site would be utilized for construction. Then in summer of 2024, we would instruct the contractors to have the playground area ready. So when you're looking at that open space site, the right-hand side of that open space would be ready to be used by the community. And then in the fall, we would actually see the other half of that open space site in anticipation for that being complete in the spring. So this is all occurring before the final project completion in the summer of 2025. So if we're able to achieve this in concert with the contractor's plan, we are hoping to be able to turn some of those areas back over for community use ahead of full project completion, which is estimated to take 2 years. So really it's 1 full year without the field. Then we're hoping to turn some of those areas back over as we progress.
Ryan, can I pause on this for a second? I think
Yes.
I do have a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
No problem.
And this is an actual picture of the playground at Cardington Field.
Yes.
A community member was kind enough to send this my way last weekend, and And I think it's a great image of families using this space and good representation of all the young school age children that would have an opportunity to attend the school here on this site. And this is obviously very dated equipment. Ryan, we're not going to repurpose this. There are going to be, again, multiple options. Would the community, and I'm going to go as far as saying even the kids, be able to have a say in the type of equipment that you're using and the design of that open space? Would we be able to do something like that? I love the idea of it being a 2-year project, but after the first year, the playground really being accessible. Would it be out of the question of being able to maybe go on site and have families and some of the kids help us into the development and the selection of some of these things?
Sure. Great question. Yeah, and absolutely. So to answer your first question, yes, none of this equipment would be repurposed. We'd be looking at procuring new equipment. And we're certainly talking with playground vendors. And there is an opportunity for the community to be able to participate in that design exercise. So as Frank said, there is a possibility that we'd be able to meet on site. Maybe there's it's kind of hard to bring a whole playground equipment to test it out, but maybe we can have specific images of different types of equipment and walk through with all of you exactly what would be desirable on that site for the community, and certainly the students and children within the community as well could certainly participate in that. So looking at exactly how schools, not only safe recreation areas, but also schools help to increase passive surveillance on the site. So the district has been in contact with Upper Darby Police Department, and they're in agreement that an increase of activity at this site, not only by the community, but also the fact that there's a school there, will both actively increase passive surveillance, but also there will be more visually open surveillance because you're going to be monitoring it from the site itself.
Yeah, and Ryan, I think it's a really important point that we are very fortunate in that the Board of School Directors and Dr. McGarry and his leadership, we have a great working relationship with the township and specifically the police department. We've already been in conversations with Superintendent Bernhardt from Upper Darby Police Department about just the idea of this project and safety and so we are going to look to continue that relationship, obviously, and I go back to those images of all these families in the park area right now and playing, and it represents just a very family atmosphere, obviously a safe family atmosphere, and we're only looking to build upon that. So I think that's a really important point, because safety has come up a couple times as being a concern, and for good reasons. Ryan, another concern that has come up quite often throughout the course of our initial 3 meetings is about traffic, and it being obviously it's a bit of a congested area with a lot of on-street parking, and this being a place, a school where there are going to be faculty members, teachers, building staff, visitors coming on site. Will they be parking along the streets where there is already very little parking left? And what about buses going onto site? And I think it's really important to know, Ryan, right, that's going to be an extensive traffic study done, that we are going to share our results of that. We are going to obviously make note of and really take serious consideration into any recommendations that are made as a result of the traffic study, to make sure it's not only a safe area for our students and families, but also that we're not adding volume to this site to the point of it being unmanageable. Is that correct?
Correct. And all great questions and points as well. So yeah, before we even begin designing this project, same thing with the geotechnical testing the site out. We're also going to be conducting a traffic study. So we're going to analyze the existing streets and how they function now. And then we're also going to analyze how in the future, the impact of building a school on this site is going to have an effect on traffic in the surrounding area. And as Frank mentioned, there will be recommendations given. And we're gonna look to meet those recommendations in order to have the least amount of impact on the neighborhood. A few other questions about parking. There will be adequate on-site parking for all staff and visitors, so there won't be staff parking on streets, taking up on-street parking. Also, remember, this is an elementary school, so there aren't young drivers like you might have at a high school or a higher education facility. So we are limited to adult drivers here at this school. And then similarly, it's going to be a preliminarily walking school. So the number of buses serving this school will also be minimal. And part of that traffic study will evaluate exactly where the best spot is to bring buses on. So whether that's Walnut Street, Sampson Street, we're thinking it's probably going to be Walnut Street, but that's yet to be seen because we haven't conducted the full traffic study yet.
Ryan, I know that I see that Mr. Desnoyers does have a question, and I think that before we get to that, if you don't mind, we'll pause and let him ask his question specific to parking.
Sure.
Do we have a ballpark idea of approximately how many spaces we are going to be looking at based on the number of classrooms that we have modeled for the site, for the building? Is that correct?
Correct. So the township requirement is 3 parking spaces per classroom. So right now we're looking roughly in the area of 70 parking spaces.
Great. Mr. Desnoyers, I'm sorry. Go ahead and feel free to unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you. You just answered my question.
Okay.
I was going to ask about requirements for providing parking, and you did just mention the 3 spaces per classroom, and I was just given that this is, as it states on the slide, primarily a walking school, is there any allowance for that in the township code requirement of 3 parking spots per classroom?
There currently isn't, and certainly we will be working with the township to make sure that we meet their requirements. And yeah, since the primarily walking school really features on the students, I don't foresee any variance from the township on that point, because it really is going to be looking at visitors and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan, Ms. Henney has a question, or a comment rather, about just I think an important acknowledgement that while we are going to have very few, if any, buses coming on site, maybe 1, 2 is what we are projecting just based on some potential hazardous routes, but the school itself and the community that it will be serving in terms of the students will be a walking school, meaning that in terms of the distance and the from the school, families will be able to walk. However, it's a good point that on inclement weather days, or just because of preference, families are going to drop off their children on site, and there will be a plan for that, just as there has been in other plans that we have worked with you on. Unfortunately, many of our schools, this really is not a part of our of the plan of the site. We have a terrible problem currently with many of our schools throughout the district, in that they do not have really adequate parent loops and drop off and pick up locations. That would be a part of the design of the space.
Correct. So yeah, although it's not designed in the overall blocking plan on the site, there certainly is room for a parent drop-off loop. And then also we'd be looking to keep the few buses that are going to be coming to the site separate from that parent drop-off loop. But then in addition to that, also plenty of parking as discussed before, but one of the key things with the parent drop-off loop is making sure that the queue line doesn't get backed up onto the street as might be experienced in other schools. So as we're designing the site and designing building placement, we're going to have that in mind as well. We're going to try to get as many cars on site for drop off as possible, exactly like Frank is saying, for those inclement weather days or those parents that decide to drop their students off.
Ryan, this slide is just kind of, it speaks to what we were just talking about. The pink bold line represents the walking zone. You can see that the shaded area surrounding the proposed elementary school site is the catchment area. So we're well within that 1 mile walking zone.
Sure.
Again, we have to give serious consideration to roads like this, Route 3 here, Market Street, and whether or not PennDOT would deem this a hazardous route, and in which case we would need to provide an opportunity for busing for students potentially on the other side of Route 3. But as you can see, this is going to be a walking school. However, of course, there is a chance that families are going to be dropping students off. And as Ryan said, we're going to make sure that we factor that in as a part of the design of the building itself. We did have, as we stated in the beginning of the presentation, we've had a number of opportunities so far for community input. We had one starting, we started off with February the 11th, and then again on the 23rd. We had our facilities plan overview at the school board meeting on the 23rd. So that was presented to the board and to the public as a part of our committee meeting on February the 23rd. We had our second community meeting virtually on the 24th, the following night. And then we had our most recent listening session prior to this one on April the 28th. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we are inviting everyone to an in-person community meeting on the field on June 7th. I believe that is a Monday at 4 p.m. So we are going to be providing some additional information about that. Get the word out to the community. You're hearing it here first, though. Please be sure to tell your neighbors, tell members of the community that we have listened. We have heard that there is a desire to have the school district and the professionals that we are working with present to the community in person, as some people are unable to, maybe because of technology or other reasons, get on to a virtual meeting. So that is our intention. Above and beyond any sort of state requirement, which is really only one meeting that we need to have, a public hearing, we are going to have multiple opportunities, as you can see, in person, virtual, at committee meetings, in a public forum, an opportunity for the board to ask questions at those public forums and community members as well. So we are not doing this, behind closed doors. We are trying to keep this all above board and have these conversations. And there have been a lot of great suggestions so far, and we look to continue to build on those as we continue with our plans. This is really important to note that this is 100% just a draft schedule. So Ryan went over a draft schedule with you a little bit earlier in the presentation, a draft timeline. And the important part of that slide was to highlight that the field would be out of use for 1 year, but we were going to do our best to make sure that that playground space and that open space was going to be available for use before the building was actually going to be available to be open. So this is just a draft next step schedule that we have here. Again, we're not putting this in stone. This is, I think a bit of a conservative approach, but something that at this point in time is we feel very possible. We're looking at, again, continuing that community input throughout the spring this year into the summer, and have the school board have an opportunity to continue to review these plans. Some continued community planning, again, looking into next fall, the process of getting some township approvals and construction drawings done. And then to eventually, our hope is to begin construction sometime near spring of 2023, with the idea of being able to open the school in the summer of 2025 for the 2025-2026 school year. And again, this is a very rough draft of our schedule. And here's a really important timeline as well, because this gives you an idea of how the other projects in the district work in concert with this one. So we're really excited that we're going to be breaking ground within just the next few weeks, believe it or not, here at Aronimink Elementary School for the much anticipated Aronimink renovation and expansion project. And we're looking to be able to have that project completed and open by August of 2023 for the 2023-2024 school year. And you can see that the other two really big projects that we have in play here, specifically as it relates to educational spaces for our students and families in the school district, is this new elementary school at Cardington Field and the new middle school at Clifton Heights. That, you know, these are, as we have been talking for a number of years, and as Dr. McGarry and the Board of School Directors have really been leading the charge on these projects, this has been something that we have been sharing publicly with our vision of our facilities improvement plans for the last number of years now. And Aronimink, like I said, is going to be off the ground and running very soon. And then it's our hope that these other two projects will be able to go, and that once they are all completed, it will really put all of the puzzle pieces in place and allow us to accomplish those objectives of really being able to best serve our community and our students, and giving our students and our staff the space and the educational opportunities that they deserve. Ryan, anything more about these timelines that I've missed?
Just you see noted down there on Clifton Heights, you know, all of this is pending approvals. And as Frank mentioned, you know, these are, besides Aronimink, that one's the one that's set in stone. Yeah, these are draft timelines, so they're best case scenarios, but things might change.
So as promised, we have about 10 minutes or so left. I appreciate you letting us take the first, 45 minutes or so of the meeting with the presentation. I apologize for it being just a little bit longer than it has the last few times that we have met. But again, we plan to continue to refine our presentations. We want to make sure that someone who's joining us for the first time is making sure that we are giving them all the important points, the talking points, but also for those of you that have been online with us the last few times, that we're addressing some of the important aspects of those conversations and adding those as a part of the conversation with you here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone.
So Frank, while you're working on that, let me just say that everyone has the ability to unmute themselves. I just want to set, before we start opening it up to everyone, just a couple of expectations regarding interaction. So if you want to ask a question, just keep in mind that there are others who may need to know the answer to that question. So let's try to allow our guests to hear the entire question and to have the Upper Darby representatives have an opportunity to give a complete answer. So feel free to unmute. And then Frank, you're going to work through the chat, or?
I can, yeah. And if we can, Chris just asked a question, and it's a great question, especially coming from him. It's somewhat predictable, about the phys ed, art, library, and music facilities that are going to be planned for the new site. Ryan, I apologize. So Ryan sent me a few slides, and I made some last minute edits, and I cut out some of the parts of the presentation, Chris, because it was getting rather lengthy, upwards of 45, 50 slides. So, but some of those, Ryan, did incorporate exactly what Chris is asking about. So do you want to take a second just to address that piece?
Sure, absolutely.
Great question. It's a great question. And the reason Chris, I believe, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, is asking it. Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind. What is your space currently like? Where's your space? What space do you have currently?
The space that I currently work out of for my classroom music is a half-size stage that's in the cafeteria area of our building. So it's very noisy and can be very challenging to teach. And then I'm currently teaching my instrumental lessons in our front lobby of the building.
Ryan, can you speak to Chris's question about the space that will be provided?
Sure.
Will he be having instrumental music lessons in the main lobby?
No, that is the good news. The plan is for dedicated music, art, library, and phys ed spaces. So the other photo that Frank took out of the presentation here is the shared gymnasium cafeteria with folded tables down the center currently at Senko. So that would also not be the case at this brand new school. So these would be 21st century education spaces that would provide, brand new opportunities to all of these students to learn, not only in a traditional classroom, but also in phys ed, art, music spaces as well.
Great. And just one follow-up. Just wondering, are the plans to have bathrooms for each classroom or hallway bathrooms?
So yeah, that'll be a decision to come later. But there certainly can be consideration given to that.
Thank you.
Chris, great questions. And I see that there was a question from Ms. Henney in the chat as well. Dr. McGarry, would you like to come off mute and address that?
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Great job with the presentation tonight. Always very thorough. I appreciate your leadership here in the district. And Ryan, thanks for your continued dedication and patience over the last couple of years. It's nice to see a timeline as we move forward. I see that Ms. Henney, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name properly, asked a question about availability of space and easing enrollment through charter schools and vouchers. I think we're all comfortable with the idea of competition. I just think it's important to point out, if there were available spaces other than this space in the school community to build a school, although it's an ideal location, there are no available spaces right now in Upper Darby for us to ease our own overcrowding. So, allowing another facility to take up space in the school district and then it pulls students from our schools, as Mr. Labonte asked a question about his programs, and he does an excellent job as a teacher. When we allow the charter schools into the school district, there is the opportunity that siphons money away from the school district. And as a result, we might be in a position of cutting our own programs and removing the supports and services that our own students need. So our focus is to improve our facilities, and this building helps ease over our overcrowding, improve the learning spaces so the talent of someone like Mr. Labonte can work with our students in a more realistic space, and the academic achievement of our kids improves. And as a result, our home values go up, the community improves. And so our focus to improve our schools and our community, the public schools in our community that we currently have. I provided some information here for you. Again, I'm speaking as a superintendent. I'm not speaking for the board when I make these comments. My comments are that the school district has to be the priority, our schools, and providing the best education that we can. And so having other schools come in, other charter schools come in, we run the risk of pulling those resources away from our schools.
Thanks, Dr. McGarry. And I want to acknowledge, just speaking of the board, Ms. Williams did join us as well and is here. So we have a number of members of the school board, which is not shocking. They are extremely busy, but they attend almost every event that we have. So we really do appreciate their support, and thank you, Ms. Williams, for being here. Does anyone else have any questions or comments, anything else before we adjourn the meeting?
I was just going to highlight, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Labonte, thank you for sharing and highlighting the constraints that you're experiencing right now and the limitations of our building when it comes to space. And I just wanted to elaborate to give everyone more of an idea of what it really is like in your position. Music is something definitely in Upper Darby that we take very seriously. It's something that we receive so many accolades for, and something that our students really are eager to begin at an elementary level, to start their journey with you and with us. And you do your best, you go above and beyond to work, in an area where lunch, breakfast can be occurring, and also gym at the same time, all simultaneously. And you also have to deal with visitors entering the building in and out, and you do that, wonderfully. Our students have the ability to succeed, with all that you provide them. So I just wanted to highlight that you really go above and beyond in the constrictions that you have. And, we are looking forward to the day where you can have a state-of-the-art facility to even take our students further than you have in the restricted environment that you're in.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson. And Dr. Head, great point in the chat about just making sure we highlight these people. We know them, we work with them every day, so we sometimes lose sight of that. But Mr. Labonde is the music teacher at Senco. Kamisha Simpson is the principal at Senco Elementary School, and we have a few other people here from Senco as well. So just appreciate you guys coming out, and you live this every day. So you are there at the school, and Chris, I know you've been there for quite some time. Last time we had a meeting, Heather Bowden joined us, and she was kind enough to unmute and give us her perspective. I know that she had been there since the building has opened. So it's a really important perspective to have with the people who are the boots on the ground, working with our students and families every single day. So we really appreciate you joining us. And Kamisha, as always, we appreciate your leadership at Senco. Mr. Sadiq, I'm sorry, I did notice that you came off mute. I wanted to give you an opportunity to say something if you wish.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, the school district, and also our school administration. And it was nice presentation. I have a couple small question, which is not my question. It's regarding the community. It's like a rumor is there that the school district will take the whole field, and during the whole construction of the playground will be shut down. All this question was there. So I would like to know that during the construction, the whole playground will be closed, or half of the field will be taken for the school and half will remain as a park, recreation for the community. Would you please clear it up? And also the meeting for June 7th, which will be very fruitful, because our community is a little bit backed up with the Zoom meeting and all these things. And then they will be very happy to come to the field to support this project. So I'm eagerly waiting on June 7th meeting. And also, can you clear it up that during this project, the field will be open and the school district will take only half of the field, and half will remain as a park for the recreation of the community. Thank you so much to give me opportunity to talk.
So Frank, I can take the, going back to a little bit earlier in the presentation, we're anticipating, so in a normal construction period, we would actually be taking the entire park for 2 years. So we're working with the district to look at only taking the park for 1 year, and then being able to give back pieces after that first year, a piece of the playground, so about a quarter of the site for the playground, and then another quarter of the site for the open field before the school opens. So in a 2-year process, the first year, the entire site will be used for construction. The second year, 2 portions of the site will be given back to be used for the community. We'll certainly study it even further as we go through the design process, but I don't want to promise that we can keep half of the site as a park until we are able to study it, really get into the design. So that's our plan. As I said, normally we would need the entire site for all 2 years, but during our planning and design, we're going to look at trying to provide as much opportunity in that second year for the community to continue to use the site.
Mr. Ryan, with the due respect, there's any way or any option that if we can make the barricade on fence it, and then the field, the people can use all year around, not to block the whole project construction time.
Understood. We will, as I said, we'll study it, and we will see what we can provide.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we are just about at 7:30. So I really, again, I appreciate everyone's time. Dr. McGarry, I want to give you an opportunity for some final comments.
Frank, again, thank you so much. And Ryan and everybody who came out tonight, to our board members who come out. Our board members give so much of their time volunteer time. It's awesome to see their commitment to the school district. I just think every time we have these meetings, our overall focus, our priority is to make the best educational facilities, the best educational opportunities for the kids in the Upper Darby School District. And we're going to continue to move forward, working with our community members, making sure our priority is to provide the best education we can for our students. And we believe that improving our facilities makes them a point of pride and encourages our kids to have pride in who they are in their community, and academically they'll achieve better. So that's why we're out here doing this, and we're excited that we're making such progress. And I agree, Frank, the pictures of seeing the kids that are on the property now, I can't imagine how beautiful it's going to be when there's a school there with a playground. And I love the idea of allowing kids to come out, maybe even pick out what that looks like to be a part of this process. So I'm excited to see where we're going to be in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Dr. McGarry. Thank you again, everyone. And we hope to see you on June 7th in person on Cardington Field. Have a great night. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.